Sacred Sites with Steve Ray, here on Morning Joy, where truth matters.
Mensa Christi is going to take us a couple weeks because there's a lot there, and I only have 10 minutes, so Tim doesn't give me much time there. So as we're driving, we just crossed over the Jordan River, coming down from the Golan Heights, and we're going to be going past Capernaum, but we'll be coming back there shortly. Well, one time I was walking into Capernaum, and there was a scorpion on the road. Anyway, that's another story for another day. And so as on the way, we come across a stone, and most people don't even know it's there. So I have to point it out, and it's on the stone right along the shore of Galilee, outside of Capernaum. It's engraved in the stone, Mark 5:24. This is the story of the woman who had the issue of blood. Remember that? And she touched the cloak of Jesus's garment, and he said, "Who touched me?" Well, they got this place marked right on the Sea of Galilee. So we always say, everybody on the left side of the bus, you can see it right now at the foot of that tree. Don't worry if you're on the right side of the bus, you'll see it when we're coming back the next day to go to Capernaum. So that is this is what's so cool about being here, is you always see these places, and you get a sense of where they happened and the location and the whole continuity of the story. So then we go by, we come by what's called the Bay of the Parables on the left-hand side, and it's a bay where Jesus was teaching, and this is what it says in Luke chapter 5. The crowd was pressing in on Jesus to hear the word of God. He was standing by the Sea of Galilee, and he saw two boats. Getting into one of the boats, which was Simon's, he put a little out from the land, sat down, and taught the people in the boat. So as we're going along, I say, we'd tell the bus driver, go slow, because I want them to see the Bay of the Parables, and that's where there was a boat. Jesus went out. Why did he sit? Because Jews sit when they teach, because that's what Moses did. He sat. They don't stand when they teach. On the right-hand side now, we're almost to the Mensa Christi, to the primacy of Peter. But on the right-hand side, you look up the hill and there's a cave. And there's always some people walking up that steep hill to get to the cave, and that's believed where Jesus was. And there's no proof of this, but that's when he used to sneak away and go out and pray to his heavenly Father. He'd sit up in that cave looking out over the Sea of Galilee. It's called the Cave of the Prayers. Then we're now 2 stops away. We're going to have 2 stops here. We see a sign that says Primacy of Peter. Also, Mensa Christi. It has 2 names. One, because the Protestants didn't like the name Primacy of Peter for obvious reasons, because this is where we talk about Jesus saying, feed my sheep and tend my lambs, or he commissioned him to be the shepherd of his sheep, the primacy of Peter over the flock of God's people. And then it's also, but the Protestants call it Mensa Christi, which in Latin means the table of Christ, because inside is a stone where Jesus fed them in John 21, the loaves and fish. When, by the way, I made my movie, Peter, Keeper of the Keys, we started a fire down on the shore, and I was cooking fish and cooking bread while we did this whole scene, because I like them to be realistic. Cooking the Amnon fish, that's what we call St. Peter's fish. But we pull in, and there's a big sign there that says the primacy of Peter. It's a long walk down through the beautiful trees, and now we're right on the shore of Galilee. This is the first time in this pilgrimage that we've been right on the shore where you can actually put your toes in the water. But first, I pull over to this. First of all, I'll describe the site, and then I'll give you kind of a summary of my talk there. I give a talk there. And when I'm done, a lot of people are in tears because it's really an emotional talk. It's quite, I've given that talk, Nick, 100 times on that spot on the shore of Galilee.
Wow.
So anyway, so when you come down, there's a church, but that church wasn't always there. That church wasn't built until 1861. What was always there was a big rock. And that rock was known all the way back in the 380s. There was a Spanish nun named Egeria that came through there in around 380, between 380 and 385. And she describes it. She said, this is the place where Jesus fed his disciples along the shore of Galilee. By the way, I have her book right here on my shelf. It's a cool book because she's describing the sites all the way back to the 4th century that we're looking at today. And she said, cut in the rock, you can see the steps up to the rock. And sure enough, there are those steps that she walked up. And she said, and there are 3 hearts on the shore. And sure enough, there are 3 hearts, big stones cut in the shape of a heart. They're on the shore, and they're still there today. And that is representing, do you love me? Do you love me? Do you love me? And those were there back in 380 AD. People just walk over them. They don't even notice them when they go down to the water because they don't even know what that is. But now as you go into the church, you come up to the front and there's an altar, and the altar is built over this big rock, which is called the Mensa Christi. That's the Protestant name for it because that's where Jesus fed, table of Christ, Mensa Christi. And everybody, we have rosaries for everybody so they can touch all the holy sites, and everybody goes up and touches their rosaries and say a few prayers inside. When I was first time nicked to the Holy Land in 1995, the priest asked me to do the readings. We had mass there in this little church. It's just a small little church. And I stood up to read. I said, the reading from the second letter of Peter. I couldn't get a word out. I tried for 2 minutes and I was crying so hard. I went back and sat down, and the priest had to get somebody else to come and do the readings. That's how the Holy Land struck me the first time. I cried my way through the whole place. But we know these are the real sites because we even have people like Egeria writing about these sites all the way back in the first centuries. And they had already been known by people since nobody forgot where these sites were. So once we step out of this church, then we go down to the shore, and everybody wants to put their feet in the water. And I've been there before. Since you've been there, you know, the steps going down. Mm-hmm. Normally you have to walk 25, 30 yards out to the water. I've been there many times where the water was up to the first step. So you couldn't even go down those steps. You'd get a soaker. That's what we called them. And I was raised on a farm. We get a soaker. You couldn't even go down the steps because the water ranges from up to that top step all the way down to way out there on the shore. Now, there's a funny sign there, and I love this sign, and I always point it out to our groups. It says no swimming and no barbecues, because that's where the locals want to come there and have barbecues on the shore. But if you think about it, Peter jumped into the boat and swam to the shore, and Jesus had a barbecue for him. I said, that is the funniest sign to me. No swimming and no barbecues. Jesus couldn't have done what he did had that sign been there during his day. But he then fed these guys on that rock. That's the rock where he fed them. And you can't go up the steps today because it's walled off, but that's where it happened, and that's what it was. So this is where Jesus gave his talk. And so to set the stage, and I see that we're probably already getting low on time here, 2 minutes left. To set the stage, when we first get off the bus, I go find there's 2 little altar areas, and I first make sure they're not going to be having mass in the next hour there. So I go and I get all our groups sitting in one of those 2. Well, there's a bigger site too, but I take the 2 smaller ones. They're more intimate. And I give the talk about John 21, and I'll just give the layout for it. John 21 is after the resurrection, and Jesus has raised from the dead, and it's not like it used to be because he was with them all the time before. Now he just kind of pops in and pops out whenever he wants to. And they're walking along, and he's not there, and he said, go meet me up in Galilee. So, okay, so they're going to go meet him up in Galilee, but he's not there. They come back to the shore of Galilee. What does Peter do? He's a fisherman. James and John are fishermen. Andrew's a fisherman. And Peter's looking around. Jesus is nowhere. So he goes, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go back out. I'm going to go fishing tonight. Who wants to go with me? And a bunch of them said, we'll go with you. And they go out fishing. It's almost as though now that the resurrection, it's not the same. Jesus isn't their rabbi leading them around anymore, and they're a little bit aimless. They don't quite know what to do, so they just decide to go back to their old way of life. They're going to go back out to fishing. But notice when it says that in the beginning that Peter left everything and followed Jesus, but when he came back, he still had his fishing boats. He still had boats to go in because Peter was a good businessman. He wasn't the bumbling idiot that most people think he was. He still had his business, and his partners ran the business for him while he was gone. I gave a talk one time on Peter the businessman. Maybe we do that sometime on Guadalupe, but Anyway, so now they're out fishing. They decided to go fishing, and they don't catch anything. And I'm out of time, or I'm going to catch it from Tim. So we'll pick up next time about the story and about the inside of the church a little bit more.
Sacred Sites with Steve Ray is heard live every Monday on the Guadalupe Radio Network program Morning Joy. For more authentic Catholic content, go to grnonline.com/joy.